So, I mean, Krishnamurti, I think his, not that I'm a deep scholar of him, but as best I understand his work, it's all about awareness. He keeps talking about awareness.
Yeah.
And, he says, can we be free of the past? And he says, as I understand his answer, it's yes, but only through awareness. Now, this scanning of the other person's face, whether approval or not, for approval or acceptance and so on, we're social beings. And so that your nervous system affects my nervous system. And the functioning of your nervous system is manifested through your facial expressions. Now, there's a time in life when that's absolutely determining of our own state. So how you look at me determines about how I'm going to feel about myself. That time of life is early childhood. Baby is scanning the face of the mother and the father, and and it's very connected. And how they look at the baby changes the baby's physiology and informs the baby's self-concept. Now, the fact that you and I are still scanning the faces of other people just means that to some extent we're still babies. We haven't quite grown up yet, where we still believe that our existence and our well-being depends on how somebody else looks at us. Well, that speaks to somewhat of a lack of awareness. Because actually, reality is, it doesn't matter what I think of you and how I look at you. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter to your life or vice versa. But we're both affected by it, So to that degree, we haven't quite grown up yet. Now, the concept of trigger, and again, Krishnamurti says, can we be free of the past? But triggers are all about the past. So let me explain that. So trigger, as we understand, is a metaphor that comes from weaponry. So there's the weapon with the ammunition inside, the explosive material, and the whole mechanism for delivering the ammunition to its target. Then there's the trigger. The smallest part of that whole thing is the trigger. The trigger is a tiny little thing. If there was no explosive there, if there was no ammunition there, I couldn't be triggered. And so when I get triggered, it's because there's something explosive inside me. That something that's explosive inside me is, I think, what Krishnamurti refers to as the past. So, in other words, if you say something to me like, Gabor, what you just said was stupid. Let's say you said that. I don't expect you to, but you might be thinking, you might be thinking it, but you're not going to say it.
Right.
If I'm actually confident that I'm a worthwhile person and that what I have to say may be right or wrong, accurate or not, but it's not stupid, then if you said to me, Gabor, what you said was stupid, I'd just be curious. Jaap, why did you say that? I'm curious why you said that. However, if I've been wounded by people questioning my value, undermining it when I was small, making me believe that what I have to say is not worthwhile. In other words, if I carry this ammunition and you say to me the same things, then I'm going to get triggered and really upset. So the power of the trigger is not in itself, but in what I'm carrying inside. And what I'm carrying inside is the past. So the more we can be aware of that. So let's say you said to me, what you said, Gabor, was stupid. And let's say then I notice, when he says that, my stomach starts to churn and there's a tension in my chest and a tightness in my throat. If I was aware of that, then I could say, that's interesting. When you say that, I get all these physical reactions. And I'm aware of that. Then I won't be triggered. So again, it does come down to awareness. But when I say awareness, it's not that simple. Because to get to the stage of awareness, there's a lot of stuff and pain and trauma that most of us have to work through before we can get that awareness. And a lot of people do awareness work without doing the emotional work. And I don't think that's sufficient.
Yeah, so you're somehow saying, and I'm with you on that, you're somehow saying there is the same trigger, but when there's no awareness, that explosive goes off and it has a consequence, physiological, psychophysiological response. And if the trigger happens, but the explosive is not there, the awareness is there, then somehow there's a different response, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And yeah, and is there more to say about what awareness is doing? Why? What is the anatomy there? Of, I mean, if there's more to say, maybe this is the deepest level we can look at it, or is there more to say about that, what that quality of awareness does in this, right? What is that? Because I mean, and I'm just unpacking that because it could easily be understood as awareness, meaning I register it, I notice it, I'm conscious of it, I can think about it, and because I can think about it, I'm aware of it. And I'm thinking that's not what you mean, right? You don't mean it becomes another part of my narrative or some kind of control. Oh yes, I am. You're saying something hurtful. I shouldn't respond. I should look at my body, and I'm going to do this. There's something. It's a more wholesome reaction that you're talking about. And is it possible to unpack that?
Well, so the Buddha in one of his teachings says that when a monk has anger, they're aware that there's anger in me. When the monk experiences joy, the monk is aware there's joy in me. In other words, you don't identify with the emotion. You notice it. It's in you, but it's not you. So that awareness is the space in which things can arise. Physiologically or anatomically, if you put it that way, it's a question of which parts of our brain is activated. Now, the more traumatized we are and the more unconscious we are, the more evolutionarily primitive parts of our brain get activated. The hind brain, which is the reptilian freeze mode, or the more evolved mammalian flight or fight response. The limbic system, which is the emotional parts of our brain, when we hold our emotional memories and our hurts and our emotional unconscious interpretations of the world, or the prefrontal cortex, which is capable of reflection and empathy and consciousness and awareness. And on the same day, I can come from any of those parts of my brain, depending on what state I'm in, how much awareness I have, how much conscious I have, how much presence I have. So what we're talking about awareness is an integration of all those parts, I believe, with the prefrontal cortex in charge. So it's not that the others disappear, nor should they, because they're essential for survival, but they don't dominate our behavior. So the more my behavior and responses stem from the unconscious parts of my brain, the childhood parts, the defensive parts, the less aware I'm capable of being.